Carol Ivy, and it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you now one of the 1992 honorees for the Marin Women's Hall of Fame. Her name is Ethel Seiderman, and she is truly one of a pioneer. She's a pioneer woman in child development, in early child education. Now, please do not take that as an insult, a pioneer. You do not look old enough to be a pioneer.
I love to be a pioneer, Carol.
But Ethel, how do you feel when people do say you are a pioneer in early childhood development?
Well, I like being a pioneer. It means you're cutting new ground, you're bringing to the world's awareness information that they maybe can start acting on in some new ways, and it's actually an honor to be a pioneer. I don't think it's tied to age or anything. It's maybe tied to vision and changes you'd like to see made, and I like to be on the cutting edge, so
I was going to say, it's clear that you like to be on the cutting edge.
I do.
You've done so many things in your life. When did it all start? Do you remember?
I do. I do. I think that it started for me really in the roots of my life, because you know that my family was an immigrant family that arrived from Poland in the 1920s, and we really grew up with the idea that they felt they were in a land of great opportunity, and as poor as we were, that you had to give back. I mean, that was the kind of message you grew up with. And so it was always deeply planted in me, and when I began to tangibly give back, I think was when I entered Brooklyn College. I began to do placements in communities in New York City.
What do you mean placements?
Well, when you go to college, you do internships, and I remember doing one in Harlem in a child care center, and, you know, made my way all the way from Brooklyn College on the subway, and worked in a child care program in the Harlem community. And also
How old were you then, Ethel?
I was about 18. That was when I call my official career starting, but before then you would always find me around kids, or you'd find me helping my Girl Scout leader. That's the image I hold of myself, and I think the way other people relate to me.
What was early childhood education like then? Was it very, very different from what we're doing today, or has an awful lot of it carried over? I
think it has some deep traditions that I like to believe we're trying to carry on today. It rested a lot on seeing the child in the context of the family and the culture and the neighborhood that the child lived in, that you couldn't just see a child in isolation. So much of our work then, I still do today, which is work with the whole family and see my job at child care in the context of caring about the whole family.
I laughed at one thing you said in the form you filled out, where you said something about your favorite, two things made me laugh. One was about a teacher you remembered who took everybody to the park in New York to feed the squirrels once a week. You still remember that?
Oh, her name and everything, even what she looked like.
Why do you remember that?
Well, you know, do you remember logarithms? I mean, you remember the people that stand out. It was Mrs. Kersinger, and we were first grade class, and I lived in a tenement in the Bronx on the ground floor. So I would watch her walk by my window. I'd wait for her to walk by my window, and one day a week, I actually think it was Tuesday, she walked all the way from the subway station to our school, which was a good 10 blocks, carrying these 2 shopping bags of peanuts. And it was like I could take a deep breath, because I knew, rain or shine, we'd go to Crotona Park to feed the squirrels. And there was something so significant in the consistency of it, her kindness to animals, the fact that she did not have to boss us, hurt us. She was doing something that made such sense in our lives. She fit the school to the kids, not the kids to the school, you know, ram them in. And that stuck always. She'll just always be a memory. Always dressed in brown, brown velour hat, brown dress, brown coat, long, you know.
You mentioned your parents were immigrants, and your father, I think you mentioned, was a milliner, and your mother was a housewife, which wasn't all that unusual in those days. Did they always encourage you to be as gutsy as you wound up being, or did they worry about their daughter being as aggressive and gutsy as you were?
Well, I think probably both. They encouraged it. I mean, we grew up with my parents always saying that they want the life for my brother and I to be better than theirs. There was hardly any question that I would be going to college. You know, it wasn't, of course, in those days I went to Brooklyn College for $5 a pop a semester. So that's a little different than today because the city colleges in New York were very affordable. But there was also no question that I had to work. You know, that I worked from the time I was 14.
Was that important?
It was important to me. My family was struggling, and it was important that I make a contribution, you know, to the effort. So those things were very much instilled in us. I wasn't forced to go to work, but it was something that I did. And they worried. I got yelled at a lot when I came home late, you know, because I got stuck in something that I thought was the most important thing in the world. I still do it. I mean, I'll just get stuck into something that I'm doing, and I've totally got blinders on, and I think, you know, that nothing else matters. And that's good and bad, because when you have a family and so on, you have to try to reach for some balance in your life.
Ethel, you were very instrumental in setting up a program right here in Marin County, in Fairfax, I believe,
Yeah.
that is considered a model for the country in terms of, you talked about family involvement, in terms of parental involvement in child care. Tell us a little bit about that and how it came to be.
Yeah. Well, I was, up until coming to this program that we're going to be talking about, I always worked in poverty areas of the United States, and I was living here in San Anselmo, and was called while I was working in the Fillmore in San Francisco, and asked if I would moderate a panel at the College of Marin on child care. My own 2 kids were here, and I had somebody in taking care of them, so why I thought child care was not a Marin County need, I still can't figure out, but I did laugh. And it's really been a kind of eye-opener to why other people here don't think child care is a need. However, I agreed to do the panel, and I said there'll be 10 people there, you know. And I walked into Olney Hall, and they were at the College of Marin, where it was held, and there were 400 people standing room, and I said, you know, I was just like bawled over. And very provocative questions. It was a time in the early 70s when women were wanting to go back to work, and where some of what came out of the 60s was not working for people. You know, cottage industries were not putting bread on the table and helping feed kids, and women were looking at getting into training programs, and nothing could happen without child care. And in my usual bold manner, I said into the audience, I will work with the community to try to get child care. Choke. And I met with a group from that meeting, a very grassroots group of people from the Ross Valley area, and the things that were clear were that they wanted to have a stake in what was happening. You know, the 60s were not the time, they were not the time where you had a lot of high feelings about establishment and institutions, and people really wanted to set up their own thing and have a stake in how that would go. And we began to write the grant for the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center, which took us 3 years to get off the ground. But the best splendid moments of it were the merge of low-income people and people like myself that had known from my own history what life was like being poor, but were doing reasonably well at that point. But we really formed a partnership and tried to craft what then opened on February 21st, 1973, as the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center.
That must have been quite a day for you.
It was an amazing feat because we had to really move mountains on the state level and here in Marin County. And there are heroines. I mean, Betty Presley was the head of social services then, and she helped us analyze that Fairfax and San Anselmo were unmet spots for daycare, and also turned her office into a working laboratory to put together, whoever knew about putting together grants in the 70s? I mean, now, I'm leaving this taping to go home and do a grant. I mean, but we didn't know then, and we all helped each other and leaned on each other. And then the state of California, in its ultimate wisdom, had never funded anything but school district child care. And we were going forth as a private nonprofit.
And what was the idea behind the center that was so different? I mean, that made such a difference?
Well, in the first place, the center would be governed by a board of directors that was made up of 51% parents, and that's still the case today. 51% of the board members of the center are people that have kids in the center right now. The other 49% would be other community people that were interested in promoting the most high quality child care for children and the best supportive environment for families. That would be guilt-free, that would acknowledge that the parent had a right to seek training and employment that would elevate themselves and in that way elevate their kids. We were not prescriptive, we were not telling people what was good for them, but we were planning what would be happening together.
When you mentioned that you had to move mountains to get this done, does it ever frustrate you as a person who's been interested in children all her life to think that we as a society make people move mountains in order to take care of our children properly?
I would like to kick doors in. Yeah, I mean, it's because this should not be that hard to come by.
And why is it?
Well, because our state and our nation does not have a policy on children. We definitely have a policy on war effort and building planes and so on, but not on kids and families. And I don't think any of us should be fooled to think that they've made this the highest priority, because about 10 years ago it cost the United States more money to build one plane than all the children's services in the entire country. And, you know, that tells you something. So when a nation doesn't have a vision, and that comes from leadership, you know, if the leader on the top kicks you, then there's no question you're just going to be kicked. But if the leader on the top says, this is something I believe in and that we promote, there's a respectfulness that comes to that agenda. And that's why it's extremely hard right now, because we don't have that kind of a vision, agenda, whatever the right word is.
You've been very involved with not just middle-income women in child care, but low-income women in child care, and you had that great melding of them at the center. Do you think today we sometimes forget in Marin County that we have a low-income population?
You know, all of my life has really been working with low-income populations. I've had a couple of situations where that was not true. Marin County has an image that it has to cut through, and it must do it for itself. If you are poor in Marin County, you are not going to walk around raising your hand and saying, I'm poor, because the ambiance in this county is that everything is just ginger peachy. And if you're not feeling part of that mainstream or that impression of mainstream, because you know it isn't the truth. I mean, we have pockets in Marin County that have people that are as poor as those people in the inner cities. You know, Marin County, parts of Marin County were founded by bringing workers here, as in the case of Marin City, to work in our shipping industries. And then what we did was the shipping industry was over, and that was over. And we never took our responsibility beyond that. That's part of our county. That's part of our lives.
And those people are still there.
They're still here. And we have to give more attention, not to fixing them, but to working with them to figure out, wherever there's a need, to work with that group of people to figure out how to meet that need. You know, Marin County's opened its doors to immigrant populations. Being the child of an immigrant, that is not an easy haul. You don't just invite people to come to the Promised Land. The Promised Land needs to be inviting to people and make it a place that welcomes and embraces them.
What is available today in Marin County, and you can be general, not specific, to a single mother with 2 or 3 children in terms of child care?
Well, I'll tell you, we are at a grim state. There has been very little child care money for low-income families that has come into Marin County since the 70s. You are looking at about 20 years of not a major infusion. When the daycare center opened in '73, there was money available to do what I was doing. Just as an example, you probably have heard of the federal child care block grant. Marin County got $126,000. That translates to 20 children. 20 children in this whole county. When the waiting lists are, I'm even embarrassed to talk about them anymore, because if you were planning to have a kid and got him on my waiting list, I couldn't guarantee you that the kid would get in, because the waiting list, and that's not, it used to be with a sense of pride because you thought eventually you'd get everyone in. Today I think it's a grim reality that we can't meet the child care needs in our county, and it's not our county's fault. I mean, you're looking at federal money, state money, commitment, priority, and so on. So in terms of child care, we have people that are sitting and waiting a long time. Now, if you get into a training program, or if you have a job or want to go to school, you're going to make some arrangements. I'm not always sure those are the best arrangements. I'm also not sure that the comprehensive family is taken care of in those arrangements. Many people in Marin are piecemealing together pieces of child care, and a kid could go to 3 or 4 different pieces, which is totally unfair if you're looking at the well-being of a child for a consistent, caring, loving environment with adults that are there in consistent ways. So we have a very poor scene, and it doesn't make me feel good to say so does the rest of the nation. I mean, I see what's going on right around me. And you know, the rest of it is that other services are unraveling for families today. I mean, you know, we are seeing a real drying up of services in Marin. That really does break my heart.
The governor of California vetoed a bill that you had worked on for a long time.
Right.
AB 982.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right.
Is that a good example of what you're talking about? I mean, what would that have done, and why do you think this happened? Why do you think it was just shoved under the carpet?
Yeah. Well, what it would have done is, one of the programs that I've been working on is a family support project. It's called the Parent Services Project, and it integrates family supports into early childhood settings where low-income, immigrant, single parent, some of the more vulnerable situations exist. And we've been carrying the message to other, I do much better in other states than I do in California.
What do you mean?
Well, the governor's wife in Colorado loves me. I was just there 2 weeks ago, you know, and then I can do good work in Florida and Georgia, but I can't get through Wilson's door.
We're not nice to you in California.
No, you're not nice to me in California. But what happened, that legislation would have taken this model that's been very successful, began in California, has gone to other states in the United States, and made it available to 2,000 more families in the state of California, so that we began to spread this agenda that we all know, which is working with the child in the context of the family. And that if you support the family and help the family develop the skills and the competencies and the confidence, then that family blossoms, and then the child blossoms. And the family has impact on all the other institutions that serve it. It begins to know how to deal effectively on its own behalf. So we have been carrying this bill for a long time. I mean, it's begun to be called the Ethel Seiderman bill, you know, I mean. And it's, I would say that we're carrying for over 8 years now. And a good friend of mine, our former lobbyist for the state of California, Sue Brock, told me several years ago, we have to redefine success. And when we may not get bills passed, but we have to sort of stay in their face and continue to educate. Because if our issues go away, then they don't come back like that. I mean, we know that.
You are a very aggressive woman who is has a very charismatic personality. And I think you are like a lot of successful women in that you can't often understand, why can't this person understand, you know, that there is this need here. But along the way, through the years, from the years you were a young woman, have you had to learn to sort of change your persona?
Yeah, yeah.
In what ways?
Well, you know, it's a sort of aggressive, but really a kind of tenacity. You know, that if there's an issue, you need to hang in, you know, with the issue. But you definitely, your question is a very important question to me, because I think you need to learn, I have had to learn, to be less intense. I mean, I'll get up in front of a hearing and I'll give my testimony, and then I'll just say, hey, you guys better learn to like me. It's usually guys, and I love them, but I would like to see some more women up there. You know, you better learn to love me because I'm going to be around for a while. And they laugh. And I mean, I've learned to maybe take myself a little less seriously, to not think that it needs to get accomplished in that moment, to sort of set a stage for accomplishing it. I also don't like to just go to people, legislators or funders or whoever, for just money. I think there's a lot of counsel to be sought there and a lot of dialogue that can go on that helps your situation. And I've also learned that I don't want to scar people along the way. I mean, the means to the end are real important to me. I don't want the prize at any price. So, you know, you kind of learn to back off and give people an opportunity to buy it themselves.
What are Ethel Seiderman's immediate and future goals, other than the bill that you're pushing so hard on? You seem as if you're a woman who always has something down the line.
Yeah. I have to keep the resources that I have in place right now. And that's an enormous challenge because so many of our pieces of funding appear to be in jeopardy. And I'm not the kind of person that cries wolf. I mean, you know, I don't like to go to a funding source and ask him for more money than I need so that maybe he'll give me what I need. I just put it on the table the way it is. And right now we have several pieces of money that are in great jeopardy. And my major thing is to not lose ground. I mean, maybe we can't move forward in the ways that I want to move forward, which is to add more children, not a whole lot more, but I'm very concerned about there are children, we do not take kids after 4th grade. There are many children that we say we can't serve you anymore, and their parents can't afford other forms of child care. So it's not to tell you that there would not be something else I'd like to do to serve those children so they're not walking around with a key around their necks. But for right now, maintaining what we have is very important to our own well-being. And frankly, I mean to carry the banner that kids and families are the most important, wonderful, I don't even like to refer to them as resource because it's like a commodity, but they're like a gift. I mean, there's not a day that goes by in my work that I don't hear incredible stories. And you know I'm going to tell you one, even though they might want to cut it out of this video.
No.
But the other day I walked into our infant center and I looked at one of the little girls. Her name is Cora, and I said, Cora, she's 3. 30 years from now I want you to be President of the United States. And then the teacher said, well, my daughter, Jessica, could be vice president. I said, Heidi, fine. Jessica's vice president. And then Tony was sitting there eating his breakfast. He's 2. I walked up to him and I said, Tony, what about Secretary of State? He looked at me and he said, Ethel, I just want to ride the school bus. You know, short-term goals. Hooray for Tony. He wants to go to kindergarten.
You must have loved
But they're
that.
great. You know, they're absolutely a gift every day. And I think maybe if we could get some of our legislators to spend long periods of time, I don't mean walkthroughs, long periods of time, a week, to see what goes on, the amount of caring, nurturing, devotion, partnership with parents, relationship with community that goes on. It's like a mini world. You know, maybe we could move mountains.
You have a husband and
Yeah.
you raised 2 children.
Mm-hmm.
How difficult was that within the context of what you were doing for everybody else?
I'm sure that there were moments, my daughter tells me that she knew that the days that I was especially late, we would probably get steak because I was trying to cover up.
That's not a bad deal.
I thought, you know, hey, don't complain, you know. But you know, I sort of tried to ease in the door, you know, and not be too visible, but they always caught me. I think that those balances are difficult balances because your own ego gets in the way. You're in the middle of achieving something that means a lot to you. But I've got to tell you that I have a very supportive situation, you know, and my husband very much feels that I need to be my own person and he needs to be his own, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't take work and it doesn't take talking and balancing and so on. But at least we can go back to what we say we believe for each other and work with that. And my kids, too. I would say that my daughter and son both feel real proud of me. I feel real good
Well,
about
they
that.
should. What do you do for fun? You mentioned shopping at Loehmann's. I love that.
Oh, are you
That
kidding?
reminds me of me. I love that.
If there's a Loehmann's in any city in the United States that I go to, I'm there. That's my total recreation.
So you
I
admit to
said,
being just a
I'm a Loehmann's
normal woman in that regard.
I think that everything I'm wearing might be from Loehmann's. I'm not sure.
So it's okay to be a woman like that and to be a powerful woman as well, because some girls think they're being given this message, that you have to give up maybe family, having a family, but you're saying you can have it all if you try to do it right.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't only Loehmann's. I do want to give the audience out there that I do shop elsewhere, but I don't think we need to buy all those sort of stereotypes of how we should be and how we shouldn't be, I mean, we have our own integrity, and I don't think it's frivolous that I enjoy clothes and have fun with them, I just don't judge others and don't judge myself by that, but I also know that I need breaks, and, now that our kids are gone, my husband and I make sure to get away and take breaks. We were just overnight at Carmel last weekend. It was my 60th birthday on Mother's Day, and we just went away. Yeah, I think you need to do that. And I mostly have fun. I know how to sort of to enjoy things, to break away and enjoy things.
What did you think when you were named to the Women's Hall of Fame?
It's a really prestigious honor. I mean, it's something that I am very proud of, that I feel even more committed to connect with younger women. That's why, at the dinner, I had 3 younger women invited, because I think that our mission needs to be to make sure that we're perpetuating the things that we stand for.
Do you think it's tough for women to be able to do some of the things that you were able to do years ago, or do we just have to prioritize?
I think it's tough, and I think it's going to be tough. I don't expect in my lifetime to see the kind of reversal or equity that I think this nation should stand for, where we all stand on our own merits, get honored for our achievements, and get equitable pay for those accomplishments. I mean, I would love to tell you that I'd love to be alive to see it, but I don't believe I will, and I'm not a fatalist, and I'm not planning to die tomorrow. But this takes a lot of continued work, and it takes a lot of perpetuation with younger women. And it is not going to be easy, but I can't think of anything more worth the striving for than to really be the kind of nation we say we are.